Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning. Welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. And welcome to Independence Day weekend. 4th of July means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And Dorothy, how many shows have we talked about?
You keep asking me these questions, and I don't really know the answer because there are so many. I haven't got enough fingers to count.
I haven't even asked you the question yet.
You keep asking me how many shows have we, and then there's an answer at the a question at the end. But
well, we talk about how Moore County is a giving community.
Yes, it is,
and how there are so many organizations that give back and help to pay it forward with all the different generations that live here.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
And using Independence Day as a backdrop, we don't have a monopoly on giving back, and we don't have a monopoly on helping people through some of the nonprofits. There is a veterans group called Veterans Guardian that we're going to be speaking about today with Scott Greenblatt and Bill Taylor. And Veterans Guardian, and we're actually going to have a conversation, as Scott said, from 30,000 feet, I think, and I love that analogy in the first segment today. First of all, guys, I want to say good morning and thanks for coming in to join us.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here today.
Morning. Glad to be here with you.
How long have you guys been residents of Moore County?
Myself, I moved here in 2006 when I did a permanent change of station with the United States Army as being stationed at Fort Bragg, and this was the logical place to live
and retire and stay here.
Live, work, and play. That's
right.
Kind of what I call it.
You and so many others, right, who have decided to call Moore County home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Bill. How about you?
So we moved here we moved here in 2009 as well.
Okay.
With the Army. This is where I got stationed at Fort Bragg, and we've been here ever since. And we came out to Pinehurst looking for houses, and just fell in love with it.
Right.
Absolutely loved it out here. Decided that this is where we needed to live. Didn't matter that it was a 45-minute drive to work every day.
Right.
It was worth every minute of that drive.
Where are you from originally?
So originally from Annapolis, Maryland.
Okay.
And then with the Army, I've been all over the world. So,
Scott, yourself, where are you from?
Originally from Seaford, Long Island, New York.
Oh, okay.
And from there, through my father's career with Pan American Airlines, we moved to Broward County, Florida.
Right.
And from there, joined the Army from 1991 for the next, quarter century. And, by virtue of my service here with the U.S. Army, here at Fort Bragg, I think there's a term for that. It's called halfback. And so we're halfway back to New York.
Gotcha. And I love the color, the dark hair, and the whole thing. You look like you're from New York. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. He's got a little kid smile too on top of it.
Right.
What brought you two guys together, and what is Veterans Guardian?
Well, that was easy. One, we live here. Remember, live, work, play. Lived here in the same community.
Right.
For so many of us here in the community, our lives are intertwined, and whether it's from social to professional to our children's lives. It's interesting. I actually knew Bill's family before I knew Bill. We were at the kids' jumping gym, one of these little kids' gymnastics things here in town, and I was dropping or picking up off my kids, and his wife Patty was there. I met her in the parking lot, and I was friendly enough, and just chatted. And I said, oh wow, welcome here, welcome to the town. Put you in touch with my wife, kind of thing, because that's what we do, right? We're this assimilating, community. And he was deployed. You were deployed overseas, and so heard all about him. Got his whole career all inside of that that half hour of chatting. And I said, this is somebody I wanted to get to know. This is somebody I can be friends with. And probably over the next decade, even though we had different career fields in the military, we just try to make time between deployments, and we got together and we stayed friends, and just our lives kind of just ran in this parallel timeline.
And that's one of the neat things about the Army and our experiences is we met. I was deployed. He meets my wife in the parking lot of a gym, and we become very close friends. And we've been friends for almost a decade before we even thought about starting this company.
Right.
And so that's kind of one of the neat things that we've experienced throughout the Army is how those relationships built, those opportunities. You never know when it's going to happen.
What were the conversations that you had, and what is the philosophy behind Veterans Guardian?
Well, some of the conversations, that's easy. So before any of this started, the organization started, well, we were in the Army. And so many of these conversations were just around our fire pit in my backyard, probably with a beer or a bourbon, talking about, the challenges of military life, discussing, our evolving careers, the back-to-back deployment, the overseas deployments, because that's a reality of being in the military today. Is 6, 9, 12, 15-month deployments overseas,
right?
And that was something that we were both juggling at that time,
right?
And then as the conversations continued on, where we really started to learn a lot about each other was as we were trying to transition. Trying to figure out what does that look like
into civilian life.
What's that?
Yeah,
civilian life.
Right.
What does life look like after the Army?
Right, and we were trying to also figure out at that time is, well, what does life look like after the Army, and does that mean we have to leave Moore County because of the challenges of employment here in the area? And that was where a lot of these conversations, centered around is how are we going to kind of make that switch?
Go ahead.
And a big part of that discussion was disability, your VA rating. And I was typical of so many veterans where I said, well, I'm not missing an arm or a leg, so that's not for me. Right, and Scott quickly started to educate me, as a friend, that, wait a minute, no, that's not the way the system's set up. That's not what it's designed for. The system's designed to compensate you for the impact of your service on your physical and mental health. And so now there was a whole new option open to me that I didn't even realize was available out there. And this was long before we ever thought about starting a company to do this. And this was just two guys sitting in the backyard talking, trying to figure out how we were going to map out our transition.
No, absolutely. And so just to touch base, so this education process, so where did that idea genesis? The genesis of that idea was from
right.
After 20, at year 22, 23, years on active duty, I remember having some of these discussions. I said, I've never really gone to the doctor once in my career. And I was like, I've never been a sick call or anything like that. I've never taken a day sick, in my career. And that's very common of service members. They just simply won't. And unless there's just an absolute need or it's a required pre or post deployment physical. And somebody said to me, they said, well, that's not smart. Like, why aren't you going to the doctor? We have some of the best healthcare here available, in the U.S. military here at Fort Bragg, And so some of these folks that have known me for a long time, and they said, I've known you for a long time. You're changed. It's what happens over time, and you should start getting things checked out. That torn labrum in your shoulder, that ankle or that knee. And and one of the signature medical issues that are just, coming out of the military now. So it's obstructive sleep apnea, and things like that. And so I started getting tested for all these different things and having all my physical issues, being treated. And I realized I really needed to start taking care of myself, and I started advocating to others like Bill to start getting the physical treatment and the and mental health treatment to get ready to be prepared for this transition. And this is just an area that people just don't understand, or they're just simply not aware about.
Don't most people think about all the things you're talking about where the VA benefits kick in? But what's the gap between where VA benefits kick in and then Veterans Guardian takes them across the bridge and further? Aren't the VA benefits supposed to do some of the things that you're talking about?
Well, so first, let's say, what is a VA benefit?
Okay.
So many veterans are benefited by the Department of Veteran Affairs in so many ways. The Department of Veteran Affairs is not, or just the VA, right? It's not just a monetary benefit for me. Right. It covers veterans in so many stages of life, right? Everything, whether it be education benefits for the veteran or their family members. The Department of Veteran Affairs runs. They're the captain of industry in the cemetery business, right? You know, they have cemeteries, multiple cemeteries in all states. Healthcare. I mean, they are a major healthcare provider to a population of 22 million people. There's research and development. There's so many different things that the veteran can benefit from. But in one small sliver of their total function is disability compensation. Right. And this is the one area that where Veterans Guardian fits that space.
The disability compensation.
Exclusively. So some people look at the Department of Veterans, filing a claim with the Department of Veteran Affairs as a sign of weakness, or you know, and that's not true. Because think of it, if you've worked for any other organization, you know, in this country, and think of if something happened to you, if you got hurt, you fell. No organization wants to see somebody file a disability claim, but if it's legitimate and real, the owner of the organization will probably even help you fill the paperwork out. Yeah. It's that serious. And so a veteran should apply for their benefits if they're legally, ethically, and medically eligible for it. And the VA will sort it out, and they're going to come up with the right answer.
And this is an interesting. So I fit the bill for this. When I first met him, you know, the Army mentality of so many soldiers is suck it up, drive on, get the mission done. You know, okay, got it. My knee's bothering me. I got a mission to do. I don't have time to go to the doctor. I don't have time to get help. That's just part of, so we live most of our careers in a constant state of some level of pain, discomfort, and you just kind of push it aside and keep doing the mission. And so we carry that mentality forward with us. And so now when we're getting ready to transition and we haven't documented our healthcare issues and we're getting ready to get out and we think that we're just as good as we were before, we're not thinking about what benefits we're eligible for. Right. And, you know, Scott really helped to open my eyes, even long before we talked about starting this business, about, you know, what am I eligible for? What is VA disability? What is it designed for? And what most people don't understand is that it is designed to compensate you for the impact of your service on your physical and mental health. So if you're an airborne soldier and you've been jumping out of airplanes for the last 15 years, I guarantee you that your knees are shot, your back's sore, and, you know, what other injuries? Maybe you got a TBI from a bad fall. Right. That's an impact on your physical health. And the disability compensation is designed to compensate you for that impact on your life.
Is it just physical disabilities that you guys talk about? What about psychological disability?
It is both physical and mental. So it can be anything from your knee as a physical condition to PTSD or depression as a mental issue. Right.
Because that's something that comes up all the time.
It does.
And a lot of times that's not so readily apparent until you look back over your shoulder 5 years ago. And where are you?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, you just said your shoulder. So let's just think about this for a minute. Take your shoulder. If your shoulder,
a doctor did about 5 years ago, torn labrum.
So torn labrum.
Yeah.
Does your shoulder still bother you today?
My range of motion is not 100%. Yeah. It's probably 95%.
So just think about the, you know, and maybe remove yourself from this piece of the conversation, or for anybody to think, how does that daily pain and chronic pain impact you and your quality of life in a couple areas, right? Socially, maritally, professionally, or live, work, play, right? So daily pain, chronic pain, if you Google it, it's side by side. It's a relationship with depression. You can't take the depression away from the chronic pain. Okay. And so just think about, how we live our lives. And when you're in a state of daily pain or chronic pain, how does that impact your relationship with your family, right? Your spouse? How does that affect your relationship with your coworkers, your subordinates, your supervisors? And over time, there's a Well, there's no positive outcomes to this, right? So there's a type of claims that we will work with, and we work together with the veterans, and we work together with licensed PhD psychologists to help develop these diagnoses for them, and in order to help support them, for them to achieve the benefits that they're eligible for.
Let's come back in the second set, and we want to find out how people can get in touch with you, how that conversation can start, that process. And we want to bring Al Mangum in to the conversation as well. Al is here, and he had actually introduced us and set this show up. We're talking all about Veterans Guardian and veterans taking care of veterans beyond just your normal VA benefits. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our second set of All Things Moore County, and our conversation today is with an organization called Veterans Guardian, Veterans Taking Care of Veterans, and offering services that might not have been, that a lot of veterans might not even be aware exist out there. And these are two retired military gentlemen with over 25 years of service. I mentioned Al Mangum at the end of the first set. Al was gracious enough to get this all set up with us. And Al, every time you contact me about setting up a show, it's always with a very compelling guest and something sometimes out of my circle. So thank you for that. Good morning.
Well, I live close to where the facility is, but interestingly enough, I was making a sales call on the new dentist office there on Highway 5, and I noticed this big building down there, and I said, my goodness, what is that? And that's how I met these guys. And I'm blown away about what they do and how they have grown in the short period of time. So I wanted to make sure that, that the public knows a little bit more about what's going on here.
What is the public? Yeah, what the public listening, and specifically to your target audience, what services do you provide? How do you reach out to them, or how do they reach out to you to start a conversation? What does that all look like?
That's easy. Okay. So for a veteran that will self-identify themselves, so somebody, they already have this awareness themselves that, hey, I'm looking for assistance. And so when they come to us, so we get a lot of our veterans come to us in many ways. One, they're simply Googling, right? And they're going on search engines and looking, and we can pop up that way. But that's just that's a small direction of where they come from. Most of them, it's they're being referred by their friends, their other fellow veterans.
Word of mouth.
That's the gross majority of where they all come from. Also, after a quarter century of service in the military, both Bill and I, you just know a lot of people, and a lot of people know what we do, and so that's how that word it just germinated, and it just and that's where it kind of took off from, and that's how they hear about us. And then also we live here in the local community, and so we have just a lot of people just simply hearing about us and walking in.
So they hire you. Again, walk me through this like I'm a second grader. They hire you, and what does your presentation look like?
So the way our system works is someone's out there looking for assistance, getting help with their disability claims, and they've got a lot of different options out there.
Okay.
There are free services out there. You can go to the Moore County VSO, you can go to the VFW, the DAV, and they'll be able to assist you.
Okay.
We provide a different option.
Okay.
We provide a higher, what we believe is a higher level of service.
Okay.
They're going to be able to come in. We have a very large staff. We have over 50 people working for us right now. And an interesting thing is almost all of them are either veterans or spouses of active duty soldiers or spouses of veterans. That's been very important to us. And so what will happen is a veteran is looking for some additional assistance. Maybe they've been frustrated in the past. Maybe they've had difficulty pursuing their benefits with the VA.
Okay.
And we can provide a little higher level of service that's going to help them further develop their claim packet for the VA. So they're going to come in, come to us through our website, through a referral, a phone call. We're going to do an initial consultation with them. We're going to collect information from them. We're going to assess their situation, and then we're going to come back to them with a recommendation on this is what we can do for you. These are the kind of claims that we think that you can pursue based on the medical evidence that you provided to us.
Okay.
We're then going to help them develop more medical evidence, whether that's with PhD psychologists that we're affiliated with, doctors that we're affiliated with, doing some self-assessments, and then we're going to help them develop the evidence that they need to support their claim. And then we're going to provide them the advice and the assistance they need to package that in a way that's going to be effective for submission to the VA.
Okay, so to a layman, so you guys are efficiency experts. You're more of an expedited concierge consulting service. I'm trying to wrap my head.
In short, we'd say we're a private consultant, and we work directly for the veteran. And so for this, just to be clear, is that we don't represent the veteran to the Department of Veteran Affairs.
Okay.
We simply work for the veteran in what we call is this pre-filing period before the claim is filed. And so what we do is, just as Bill said, is we develop that medical evidence, right? Those independent medical opinions. We develop that rational solution that meets the medical legal policy requirements of the U.S. Code Title 38, the Code of Federal Regulations, because the VA the Department of Veteran Affairs is really a federal agency. And that federal agency, like any other, they're governed by a set of policies and laws. And it's very confusing. If anybody's ever experienced this process, even looked into it,
is it a red tape nightmare?
It is it's a lot of bureaucracy, but what we have proved that you can succeed with the VA for claims that are legitimate. And the key is to do it correctly, right? To do it accurately and to get the paperwork filled out exactly the way they need to fill it out, so that when they receive this paperwork, they can very efficiently go through it and make a decision. So it's also very important to know is that we don't make any decisions. What we do is we posture the veteran to ensure that they're going to get the honest look at that they've earned.
Now, if they do not succeed in getting these benefits, do they still have to pay?
Oh, no, absolutely not. So just to be absolutely clear, and this is something that we make very clear with our veterans right up front, is that we are a fee-based organization. We work on a contingent basis. And so that if the veteran does not receive a favorable outcome for their service-connected conditions through through themselves filing this claim, there are no fees to us. So what we say is internally is that we take the risk up front, right? Mm-hmm. We make that time investment,
right,
administrative investment in this process and developing their solution. And so we got to get it right. We can't get it right a part of the time,
right?
Because that's okay for some just to be right part of the time.
Right.
We have to be right every single time, or we're just simply, we're not doing the system of service, and we're not doing that veteran of service.
So it's somewhat like an attorney who is representing someone who's been in an auto accident, or a doctor's messed them up or something like that, where if they're successful, then they do have to pay a fee.
But there's no retainer in their situation, is what you're saying, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Do both of you have personal stories of friends, people that you knew, that affected you in such a way that created a desire and a need to provide this type of service? I guess I'm trying to figure out where the seeds of this all came from.
Yes. For so many, they have not gone through the physical and mental impact of service. I mean, living your life is enough, and then there's a lot of impact. Raising children, and how many, you're gonna damage as a man. You're gonna damage your shoulders by every time you pick up your kids and put them on your shoulders, right? But it's a little different being in the military, and the physical impact is so much far greater. So when we talk about a quarter of a century of service, each of us, all of our peers are being physically and mentally impacted. So there isn't one story that we can necessarily draw from.
Yeah.
It's a population of all of us that are silently in pain.
And I'll really echo that point, because both of us were leaders in the Army our entire career, responsible for soldiers, responsible for our peers, and in many ways our bosses as well. And so you develop this culture of wanting to reach out and help your fellow soldier,
right,
your fellow veteran, help them to achieve everything that they're entitled to. Whether that was as a soldier in combat trying to make sure that they were best trained and equipped and ready to go out and do the mission. Well, now we've just taken that same mentality, and it's fantastic for us because we get to now continue our post-military life with a business that allows us to continue to help veterans. And this is something that was inculcated in us throughout our careers.
I'm curious about something. You have 50 employees. What do they do?
Well, 50 that was probably the number when you came to visit us. Well, that number's grown since then. And whatever number we're about to tell you, that number is going to change when you come visit us again. So what do they do? Well, so just to put it to kind of frame this piece out and how we created this organization. Again, remember, Bill and I, both career military, we work in a very compartmentalized organizations in the military. So we've created a lot of different compartments in our organization too. And so everybody has, so from a knowledge base, so everybody is kind of a narrow scope but very deep knowledge. So there's different departments, and you have different experts. We have post-traumatic stress claim experts. We have different variants of mental health claim experts, right? We have experts that understand. We have a policy expert in our organization that is constantly uncovering changes in policy. We have a documentation team, right? And so we also, we have different claims specialists, or we call them. They sort of serve a role as case manager. So they kind of take a veteran from cradle to grave through that entire process, all the way through to the successful, execution of that claim. And it takes a lot of people to do this.
Are most of them medical related? The employees, have they had some medical background? Or
in our general medicine team, everybody in that department does have a medical background.
Right.
Absolutely, and that background was it started in the military for some, or they were spouses of veterans in the military, or we have other individuals that were medical professionals for the Department of Veteran Affairs as well. And so we bring in that kind of expertise.
Do you have relationships with VA hospitals? I know that you have it's not just the Sandhills area. It's I think you said all over the country.
Yeah, so that's a two-part question. So the first part is, do we have a relationship with the Department of Veteran Affairs? No, we don't. Okay. The Department of Veteran Affairs, they're taking care of what they need, their mission and their role to care for our nation's veterans, and we work for the veteran. We're just an independent private consultant that works hand in hand with the veteran. And the second part you asked is, I think, is where are our veterans? It's not just here in Moore County. It's the planet Earth. Our veterans are all over the world. I think we served the 3 veterans in North Pole, Alaska, all throughout Europe, Latin America, Israel, Middle East Arab states, and anywhere and everywhere on the planet that the veterans are learning about Veterans Guardian, and in so many of these isolated locations, Australia, just some of these other places that they wouldn't have any access or understanding about the process, they reach out to us. It starts with a conversation. We learn about the veteran, we understand their needs, what their challenges were, and we develop a solution, a strategy for them to succeed.
Your technology is part of that too, I would imagine.
Well, so we intentionally developed a system that would allow us to serve veterans wherever they're located. Wow. So that was great for us because it was easy for us to locate our business here in Moore County. This is where we live. This is where our lives are. But there's also a great veteran base. But it also, the way we set up the system, most of it's done through video teleconference, email, phone calls.
Right.
And so we're able to really service a veteran wherever they're located. And that's been a great advantage for us and also for our veterans.
We're going to come back in the third set. We're talking with Veterans Guardian, helping veterans attain the VA benefits they have earned through their service to the nation, and providing them with an efficient, to be a catalyst and to provide a conduit to getting better results than they might be able to get on their own. This is All Things Moore County. Welcome back to our final set. Speaking with Scott Greenblatt and Bill Taylor, Veterans Guardian. You guys are located over on Trotter Hill Circle off Highway 5 in the vicinity of the post office on the other side of the street down the hill. You have a website that people can go to, good information on that website to give people an overview of what it is you do. And that is vetsguardian.com, V-E-T-S, guardian.com. Word of mouth is the number one way to get somebody who's enrolled in front of you. But you go out to different conventions. You meet people. We were talking a little bit after the first break about some of the things you do when you travel and how you meet clients.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so one of the things. So I keep on hammering the point that we're both career military, and so you're around guns a lot.
Yeah.
And so we've gone to gun shows, and it was just going to a gun show and you just realize there's just so many veterans there. So we've traveled to gun shows around the country to meet with veterans, to educate veterans on this process, and if any veteran is interested or that feels that that they've been underrated for their service-connected conditions,
yeah,
then we start working with them. And but it really just started out of going to the gun show right here in Fayetteville and at the Coliseum, and turns out I'm like, I didn't realize this place is just all veterans. And so that kind of sparked into one of our things that we do as a company as we travel around the country, and not just going to gun shows. We also go to, for example, like next weekend we're going to Atlanta to a veteran PTSD awareness event that's going to be sponsored around a car show. So we're sponsoring that event. So we sponsor lots of events to help bridge that monetary gap for them, right, to help make their events, a reality. And we participate and we go there to those events as well.
You set up a booth of some kind or a place within the building?
Absolutely. We set up our tent and we bring out some of our employees, get them out there to travel, and we just like to engage. I mean, because just like everything else, it starts with a conversation.
And that's a really important point, because so much of this business is personal.
Right.
Our clients are going through difficult times, whether it's mental issues, physical issues, and one of the hallmarks of our business is building that personal relationship with our clients.
Is it hard to pierce the circle around them? Are people private? Do they keep some of these things to themselves, their frustrations? Do they share with others? Or do you have to reach out to them to say, hey, there is a service available that could that they might not have even thought of or be aware of?
So there is that barrier there. And what we're finding is one of the best ways to breach that barrier is through our own clients.
Right, right.
So we help someone out,
right,
and they go tell their friend,
right,
and said, hey, it's okay to talk about this.
Right.
It's okay to address this. Why don't you give these guys a call?
Right.
And we've found that once they've gotten past that point and they're ready to give us a call, then they're ready to talk about it. They're ready to address whatever issues and difficulties they're going through. And that's one of the reasons we have focused so much on hiring veterans and spouses of veterans in active duty, is we wanted our employees to be able to relate to what our veterans are going through.
Yeah.
And so while we're going through this process, this is just a little phrase that every single veteran will hear when they're going through with us is, don't just be honest, be brutally honest. Just so brutally honest that you may not like what you're saying, and how it comes in. If you can't put yourself in that context, in that state of mind, how would your spouse or your children or people who know you best, your coworkers, in many cases, how would they answer these questions about you on how maybe your pain is affecting, your quality of life, and also, and just, there's one of the things we say in the military is, just walk it off.
Yeah.
An 800 milligram of Motrin, and there's all kinds of slang terms, and anybody who's been in the military knows those terms for them. And, like Ranger candy and things like that. And that's simply not true. It's just it's false. It's a bad narrative. And so what we do is that's overcome. But like Bill said, it's through that peer network within the veteran community, and they tell them that you really need to get this fixed, or you need to improve your benefit position with with your VA rating.
Yeah. Do you deal with the spouses and the family members sometimes?
So great example. We had one client who had severe PTSD issues, and it was so bad that he really wasn't able to talk with us on the phone and deal with some of the mechanics of going through the process. I got to know his wife on a first name basis. Still get notes from her every once in a while. We got him to 100%. A soldier that had a very traumatic, bad experience in the military, and his spouse standing by his side and helping him go through this process. And I'll never forget her name. Just glad that we were able to help them get to a better place in their lives.
Your flyer is very compelling. Ensuring veterans receive all of the VA disability benefits they're entitled to for their service-connected disabilities. And you've covered it, both physical and mental. And not unlike a CPA, I mean, there are a lot of people everyone has to file taxes, but not everybody chooses to do their own returns. And the more complicated they get, the CPA is there, the accountant is there to provide a service, because we either don't have the time, and it's more cost effective for us to have an expert do it. And as I'm listening to you guys, that's kind of like the big picture narrative I get. You're like the CPAs of helping veterans fight for some of their what's owed them.
Yeah, we had a recent case that really highlights that very well. We had a veteran come to us, once again, a global war on terrorism veteran, had a really bad PTSD experience in theater, had filed a claim with the VA and been denied.
Yeah.
Here's the fascinating thing. He has been diagnosed by a VA hospital with PTSD, is being treated by that VA hospital for PTSD. But because the disability compensation side is separate from the care side, those two didn't mix with each other. And so because he didn't fill out the paperwork properly and didn't provide the correct evidence, his claim got denied. He's frustrated with the VA.
That's a topic for another show.
Causing further problems for him. He comes to us. We're now able to take his claim, package it correctly, get the paperwork filled out right, make sure the right evidence is included in the packet. And the good news story is at the end, his PTSD claim got approved, and now he's receiving the compensation that he earned through his service to the nation.
So the process of streamlining, being more efficient and more expeditious, you can help. You make a case more aerodynamic. It can get from here to there a little smoother, right? The drag is not so deep.
Yes.
And you guys, with your experience, can help provide and oversee that. So that's a value.
And just to highlight, how much we can streamline, our record is 36 hours from when the veteran submitted their claim to the VA and they got their approval back in 36 hours. And the reason is that every element that the rater needed to approve that claim was included in the packet. And so that they were very easily able to go check, 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 check. Here's everything that I need to approve this.
Right.
And they were able to approve it. Now, granted, that only happened once, but that does happen. And routinely, we see veterans get claims approved in a week, 2 weeks, less than a month.
You also work with 4 different generations of veterans. It's not just today.
No, that's exactly right. We're talking, just to even break down some of the errors. I mean, we have you have Vietnam veterans,
right?
Back and forth. You have Korean War veterans. You have Cold War veterans. We have Desert Storm veterans. We have Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom. The Global War and Terror period. Now we even have this current generation. Now we have this population of veterans that served in the military for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 X amount of years. And they had, because I just got done talking about all these major combat operations, some of these veterans didn't serve overseas in combat. So some people ask the question, well, are they entitled are they eligible for benefits? Well, absolutely. And so kind of take yourself back and think of, being in the military, you have a fueler, right? He's working in a garrison on a military base, and he's with fumes, heavy equipment, right? Working in the middle of the night, pumping fuel into aircraft. You can physically get hurt out there, and they leave the service after a couple of years,
right?
And they are and so now they're eligible for disability, and whether it be an administrative clerk or an infantryman, they're both equally eligible for filing disability claims for their conditions.
Yeah, people can reach you at 910-444-1951. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You're on Facebook under VA Claim. Is that the www.facebook.com /VA Claim?
Easiest way, just go into Facebook search and just type in Veterans Guardian.
Thank you. Okay, more intuitive that way.
Yeah.
And your website is vetsguardian.com. You guys are both local, but you work globally, or I would say all over the country, not just in Moore County, but you're all over the world. I appreciate you guys coming in. Scott Greenblatt, Bill Taylor. Veterans Guardian is a service that people need to be aware of, and hopefully through some of the conversations, we can help, or you can help increase awareness to get more people to talk to, because you just need to speak to the people, and the word of mouth is what's been your number one go-to, right? Gentlemen, I appreciate it, both of you. Al Magnum, thanks for setting this up. Veterans Guardian is the organization, and it's not lost on me that we're doing this on Independence Day weekend. This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week. Thank you.